Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. E.C. Bhakti-Vedanta Swami Prabhupada, Chapter 4, Text 2. Evam parampara praptam imam rajarshayo viduhu sakaleneha mahata yogo nashta parantapa. This is one of the Gita verses most quoted by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. And it's often used in our preaching to establish that spiritual knowledge, to be bona fide, must come in a bona fide parampara. This is an essential point because in what is called Hinduism, many people speak from Shastra. But Srila Prabhupada's whole point in giving Bhagavad-gita as it is, as he explains in this purport, is to give it without change. Fidgeting. You're fidgeting. Do you know what fidgeting means? It means to do what you're doing with your hands. So the knowledge of Bhagavad-gita has to be presented as it is to benefit anyone. How can we know that the knowledge is presented as it is? Well, one important factor is that it's received in a parampara, which is presumably why Srila Prabhupada, at the beginning of this Gita, of this edition of Gita, gave the list of acharyas in parampara from Krishna to himself. In this verse is stated, Kaleneha Mahata, mighty time. It can also be understood to mean a long time. So certainly, from the time of Krishna speaking to Brahma or giving this knowledge to Brahma down to the present time, it's a long time. And you would expect that things get changed in course of time. But by giving this list of acharyas in parampara, Srila Prabhupada wants to demonstrate that even though he's giving the knowledge which was spoken a long time ago, even 5,000 years ago is a long time ago, it's still the same message. And of course, another way we can understand that this is the actual teaching of Gita is by examining the teachings themselves. And Srila Prabhupada has given Bhagavad-gita as it is, with each word translated, and with profuse quotations from Shastra and previous acharyas, to stress the point that he is simply giving the message of Shastra as it is received through the parampara of acharyas. Now, generally we think that, this parampara broke after a long time by the might, but it can mean that the parampara can break at any time. It's not necessarily true that those who are direct disciples of Srila Prabhupada are actually in parampara. The parampara can become broken after many generations or immediately. How does it get broken? Someone says something different. They may emphasize to a great extent something that is not emphasized by someone else, by the previous acharyas. And when that happens, whenever it happens, then the parampara, the full teachings as they are not transmitted. So it may happen after a long time. It may happen after a short time. In Kali Yuga, things tend to happen, bad things tend to happen quickly. Tato, what is that? Tato nudinam, what is that verse? Tataschanudinam dharma satyam shocham shamadaya kalena, hear that word, kalena balina, by mighty time. Kalena balina rajan nangshantyayur balang smitihi. In Kali Yuga, by the mighty influence of time, in Kali Yuga, in every day all good qualities decrease. Good qualities beginning with dharma, truthfulness, satya, shocham, cleanliness, mercy, this tolerance, lifespan, bodily strength, and mental strength. So all these things, they decrease with every day in Kali Yuga. So what is it that maintains the parampara, and what is it that causes it to break? Unless there is a purity of intent, then things get changed. The message of Shastra is pure devotional service to Krishna. That's the ultimate message of Shastra. And in that light, Srila Prabhupada explains Bhagavad-gita. That purity of intent is described by Srila Rupa Goswami. Anyabhilashita shunyam jnana-kamadyanavritam anukulyena krishnanushilanam bhakti ruttama. The topmost level of bhakti is that which is practiced, executed, cultivated, with no desire other than to cultivate such bhakti. With no influence of karma. Karma in this sense means the Vedic process of attaining sense gratification. And jnana in this context means non-devotional study of Shastra with the aim of attaining impersonal liberation. So if this is not present, and if full faith in Krishna consciousness, in Guru, Sadhu and Shastra is not present, then something will be changed. The truth doesn't change, but the presentation of it changes. That's why Krishna says, Yogo Nashtaha. This, which Srila Prabhupada translates as, the science as it is appears to be lost. The science of Krishna consciousness is never spoiled, but the presentation of it may be misrepresented. Now, if someone has motives other than to fully surrender to Krishna, then they will either change the philosophy of Krishna consciousness. Again, you can't actually change it, but they will present it in an altered way. Or they will misrepresent it. For instance, the principle of following authority is inherent in Vedic culture and in any culture throughout the world, either directly or indirectly, it's there. But it is possible, and it is not uncommonly observed, that someone who, due to being a part of a Krishna conscious organization, has some position and some authority, executes that authority not only for the sake of delivering the message of Parampara, but also to facilitate their physical or mental sense gratification. And they may say to others, well, you just have to follow what I say, because I'm the representative of Srila Prabhupada and the Parampara to you. And they disallow questioning of that prerogative. Krishna didn't disallow Arjuna from asking questions. We'll find just 2 verses after this verse which we quoted today. Arjuna asked Krishna what seemed to be a very challenging question. Arjuna asked Krishna that how is it possible, you said that you spoke to the sun god, How is that possible, considering that you're just the same age as me, and how could he have spoken so many millions of years ago to the sun god? It's a great challenge, actually. And of course, Krishna gave the appropriate answer. He didn't just say to Arjuna, look, how can you doubt me? I'm your guru. You just have to accept what I say. Someone who has to fall back on their authority regularly to justify what they say and do probably isn't fit to be an authority. So in various ways, the presentation of the philosophy and practice of Krishna consciousness may be changed in ways that break the parampara. Actually, if someone wants to surrender to Krishna, it's not easy. Apart from the fact that it's not easy to control one's mind and senses and fully surrender to Krishna, it's also not easy to go against the whole current of materialistic society. Materialistic people have many misconceptions. For instance, at the present time, it's a very widespread misconception that saintly people, their main duty is to see to the bodily welfare of others and social welfare of others. So it may seem harsh and callous when we say that, well, actually these things are not so important. The real welfare work is to give others spiritual knowledge. Most people won't understand this, and they may blame the devotees that you're not very good sadhus. Why don't you do something to help the people? As Giriraj Maharaj, who was with Srila Prabhupada for long periods in Bombay, he told me that practically every day someone would come to Srila Prabhupada and say, why don't you open a hospital or a school and a clinic? And Prabhupada would refuse every time. So it can be, it's very difficult to spend your whole life fighting the waves of materialistic consciousness. It's much easier to go along with it. But if you do that, then you're not exactly in the parampara. One may still, in the Gita class, talk the message of Bhagavad-gita as it is. But then in other situations, one speaks a different message. That means that one is not representing Krishna consciousness always. One is otherwise, at other times, representing what someone else's ideas, not Krishna's ideas or the ideas of the parampara. Now, we may think, well, the parampara, the yoga nashta, the science as it is appears to be lost. We might think that, well, it's just everything is lost completely. But the altered paramparas, they may continue. And they may claim themselves to be bona fide parampara. For instance, it's widely accepted among a large class of scholars of Christianity that modern Christianity has got very little to do with the teachings of Jesus. The whole idea of Jesus being God, which is central to Christianity, was not, as far as we know, taught by Jesus himself. So, something is going on in the name of Jesus for more than 2,000 years, or about 2,000 years, but whether it appears that the actual parampara was lost at the very beginning, or very close to the beginning. And in the parampara of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, there are many people claiming to be the followers of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur and Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur didn't accept them to be bona fide paramparas. Now, in course of time, some things will change. That's just the nature of time, especially in Kali Yuga, and especially since the industrialization of human society. Culture has changed in many ways. So we see that Srila Prabhupada, he presented Krishna consciousness according to the need of his target audience to understand it. There was a time in India when it was considered by orthodox pundits that to even discuss spiritual matters in any language other than Sanskrit was a sacrilege. Then it gradually came to be accepted that such matters could be discussed in the vernacular languages of India. And then again there was there was protest from persons who considered themselves to be orthodox against discussion of such topics in English, with the idea that such topics cannot be, first of all there was the idea that such topics cannot be properly transmitted in languages other than Sanskrit. And then the idea came that it can't be transmitted in languages other than those, the vernacular languages of India, which are derived from Sanskrit to a large extent, most of them. So this, as Srila Prabhupada wrote in his preface to Srimad Bhagavatam, undoubtedly this presentation of Srimad Bhagavatam in a language with which he's not fully familiar, there will be many flaws. And from a linguistic perspective, Srila Prabhupada's writing of English and speaking of English was not standard. There were many flaws, but the message was transmitted. That does leave some need for followers of Srila Prabhupada to often to unpack or to understand what he was saying by referring to the Acharya's commentary. In some cases where it may be unclear, it may be necessary to, because of Srila Prabhupada's, sometimes I have it, his use of English was, sometimes he used words in ways that are not standard. So it may be necessary to refer back to the Sanskrit texts to understand what that means. Or in his Chaitanya Charitamrita commentaries to refer to the Bengali commentaries of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur and Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, from which he drew much. Now this has to be done very carefully, but it may be necessary to do so in some cases. To fully understand something if it's ambiguous. Now the change the science becomes lost when it's changed. And the change may not be even very apparent. Just like, for instance, in a complex carbon compound, if even the shape of it is changed, the cellular structure is changed, it can radically alter its properties. Or a slight change, something that might seem to be a slight change, in course of time it becomes accentuated. If two lines, or if from a straight line, if another line is drawn which deviates from it at 0.001 of a degree, you won't even notice that there are two lines there at the beginning. But after 1,000,000 kilometers, it'll be clear that there are two lines. One line has deviated from the other. So in the same way, in the beginning something might not be clear that it's a deviation, but after time it becomes more clear. Whereas those who are deviating, they may say, no, this is the actual line, the other one is deviating. So change means to add something or subtract something or to reinterpret something. Now there are what we could call bona fide instances of this within our own sampradaya and within other sampradayas. For instance, Srila Jiva Goswami, his writings are considered to be the most authoritative on Gauriya Siddhanta. So in his writings he upheld Svakiyavad, which means the proposition that Krishna is married to Radha and the gopis. Later, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he established Parakiyavad, that they're not married. And that is now accepted as Gauriya Siddhanta by all Gauriyas. He didn't say that Jiva was wrong, but he stated that he had upheld his position due to some contingent need at the time. So great acharyas, they may make... of course, Vishwanath didn't just make up this Parakiyavad, but that discussion was, or that debate was going on, and he gave the final word. So how do we understand what's the actual line? Ultimately, we have to follow the acharyas. Then different people may say, well, our acharya says this, and then it may be different to what other acharyas say. So one has to be very serious and sincere, then Krishna will guide him to the right path. The parampara doesn't break just because of acharyas, different people or different philosophers within the parampara having different presentations. But actually anyone who's initiated into a bona fide parampara is expected to be a chain in the parampara. So everyone who's initiated in the parampara, whether they're a so-called big devotee or a so-called small devotee, they have the responsibility to speak and act according to the teachings of the parampara. So we should all be worthy representatives of the parampara. That is possible if we're completely sincere in our outlook, and especially if we very scrutinizingly, as Srila Prabhupada said we should do, study his books. We sing daily, Guru Mukha Padma Vakya Chitte Te Korya Aikya, that we want to make our heart one with the teachings of our Guru. So to be a worthy representative of the parampara, we have to very seriously execute the first duty of a disciple, which is to hear. Hearing means, again, with faith. We have to have faith that this is actually correct. That can be a great challenge in the modern context, where many statements of Shastra don't seem to be correct in statements about so many statements. For instance, that the Shastra describes that all the universes emanate from the pores of the body of Mahavishnu. So it requires some faith to accept this. Without that, we're going to be stumped immediately. Of course, we could say, well, we don't really accept that, but then that would put us outside the parampara. Then yoga nashta, the science has become spoiled. Or we may emphasize things which our acharyas have not done. I just read yesterday on a website, a non-ISKCON website, that someone had written that the parampara previously had been spoiled by sahajiyarism. Sahajiyarism means they emphasize in an imbalanced way the intimate pastimes of Radha and Krishna. It's definitely not outside the intimate pastimes of Radha and Krishna. They're definitely not outside the scope of Gauriya Vaishnavism. They are the ultimate worshipable, in the ultimate puja of the Gauriya Vaishnavas. But the example of our acharyas is to not present that very openly, or to approach it with caution, with some caution. They are meant for discussing in the association of advanced devotees. So on this website it said that previously the parampara was deviated through sahajiyism, and now it appears to be deviated by humanism, by which it seems that he meant humanitarianism, although the two are not necessarily mutually exclusive. And he gave the example of feeding school children, opening hospitals and eye camps and so on. And I don't think anyone can deny that these are activities that Srila Prabhupada didn't emphasize. So it is arguable that this is indeed a deviation from the Parampara. So people who are coming to Krishna consciousness in the modern age, they are met with all kinds of different, by modern age I mean right now, 2013, you may meet very different approaches and interpretations of Srila Prabhupada's teachings and his mission. So it is intelligent and essential to find out where is the thread of Parampara. And we should find out that where are the teachings coming down exactly as they came down from Krishna to Brahma to Narad to Vyasa to Madhva and then through Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and down to Srila Prabhupada. And is it the same thing going on? Because at least according to some outside observers of ISKCON, it seems clear that to them that the Parampara is deviating into humanitarianism. And he also mentioned this mixing with Mayavadis and some other things also. So what should we do? Well, I can recommend that you very carefully study Srila Prabhupada's books and just look to see if what you're getting in the name of Srila Prabhupada's teachings actually is Srila Prabhupada's teachings or not. In Tamil Nadu, this humanitarianism within ISKCON hasn't taken off, thanks to Karunanidhi, I would think. Because he has this cheap rice program, then he started some program of 1 egg for every child going to school. And then Jailalita, she said she'd give 2 eggs, isn't it? What happened actually?
Yes, something like that, I don't know exactly.
So there's no... They beat us to it. They're more Krishna conscious than we are. Really? Okay, there are a few thoughts. Any questions about that?
No, as you told, as you said in the lecture, that we can see and also know the examples of acharyas who have done certain unprecedented acts in order to appeal to contemporary people so that they can take a Krishna consciousness. And for that, we have changed some philosophical points of view.
I didn't say that. I never said that. I never said that the acharyas to facilitate people taking to Krishna consciousness change philosophical points. That's the whole point, that they don't change the philosophical points. Well, that was nothing to do with Jiva Goswami and Vishwanath. That was nothing to do with people taking up Krishna consciousness. That was a point of Siddhanta within the Sampradaya. It was nothing to do with preaching.
Say that to appeal to the intellectuals of that time, we had to look at Swakiya.
Oh, Jiva Goswami had done that, yeah. Yeah, it seems that he did that, not exactly with the aim of spreading Krishna consciousness, but that has been suggested by one, who was that, Giridhar, not a major acharya, that he did that to placate persons within his own circle who didn't want to accept this, which is actually a very dangerous philosophy, as it was later seen after the time of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur that became misused. So?
There is a list of examples and even devotees of all acharyas. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he quoted Sridhar Saraswati in his Bhagavad-gita commentary.
Yeah, Vishwanath Chakravarti, he quoted Madhusudan Saraswati, but he didn't take his whole Siddhanta. He quoted it within the context of his own teachings.
Then say that Bhagavad Vidya Bhushan that he had accepted, he had just so much of similarities between the Madhva's Dvaita Dvaita and
Madhva's Dvaita? Madhva wouldn't even hear the word Advaita. Shuddha Dvaita, yeah. He just called it Dvaita, but then later it was called Shuddha Dvaita. Only Dvaita. So yeah, the big acharyas, they make different philosophical contributions, and in this way, the understanding of the sampradaya may develop. That's a fact. I'd be nice if we had some actual such discussion at such level, rather than we believe that to feed a hungry child is the best way to serve Lord Krishna. Alright, so if you say that the present leaders of ISKCON can change this and that, well, let them give a philosophical presentation to back it up. We didn't see that. All the previous acharyas, if they made some what appeared to be some change, they gave extensive philosophical backup to show, based on Shastra. So let's see that. If anyone wants to make some radical changes, let's see their philosophical backup. Then we can discuss it. Otherwise, when we see statements like that being made in the press, in the name of ISKCON, that we believe that to feed a hungry child is the best way to serve Lord Krishna, which is clearly against the teachings of Shastra and all the acharyas, unless there's some extensive philosophical backup, which would be extremely difficult to give such a philosophical, then we just take it as a deviation, that's all. And then we take it as yogo nashtaha. How else to explain it? Anything else? All right.
Maharaj, in most of the lectures we've been hearing, you've been saying constantly that there is deviation even within ISKCON. The procedures.
I often say that, not all the time.
Yeah. So
I often say that there are deviations within ISKCON. But I don't just say it, but I give some philosophical backup for that, though.
My question is, why such deviations happen when all of the they belong to one particular.
Why, when everyone belongs to the same Parampara, the same Guru, why does it come? Well, I analyzed that in the beginning of the lecture. Why does it happen? Because the spirit of anyabhilashita shunya, of pure ahaitukiya pratihata, unmotivated, undevoted devotional service is lost. Or one doesn't have complete faith in the acharya. No, I just want to finish what I'm saying there. As I said in the lecture, it is difficult to go against the whole flow of society, to be fighting all the time. It's much easier to do things by which people will praise you. So this is how we become sadhus in the eyes of the public, but not in the eyes of God.
What is the solution for it? The problem is come.
What is the solution? Well, one solution is that we as a movement carefully examine the path that we're on and see if it's actually in line with the Parampara. Before starting activities that Srila Prabhupada was at least at face value opposed to, it should have been discussed with all the members of the leading members of the society rather than just started. As various leaders of ISKCON within India have said, that this midday meal things, it's not going to stop. Even if you wanted to stop it, it would be very difficult to stop. So what is the solution? I'm also asking. At least we should be clear what is correct and what is not correct. Most likely in course of time there will be split-offs from the or that's already happening in various ways, splits or splinter groups from the official ISKCON. An ISKCON that doesn't represent Srila Prabhupada as it is an ISKCON in name only. The first duty of this organization is not to build temples or first duty is to understand Srila Prabhupada's teachings and seriously follow them in all respects. Building temples and making disciples and all this all has to follow on this principle of understanding Srila Prabhupada's teachings and following and preaching those teachings as it is or as they are. Without that, everything else is superfluous. Yeah.
Yesterday I was hearing a lecture about the values of Indian culture.
Given what?
Given him aircraft.
I see. Aircraft, yeah. Okay.
Here, you were referring about respecting parents. People used to say that you were giving the example of Smartha. Even they were occupying higher positions, they used to offer full obeisance. And you were saying once, referring to Srila Prabhupada saying that when Gardamuni Maharaj's mother was coming to ISKCON, he said that you should offer obeisances to your mother and ask the donation from her. And what is the practical advice you give to your disciples or aspiring disciples? How should we approach our parents?
How should we approach our parents? Well, it's a very big subject. I guess it's vaguely connected to Parampara, not very much connected to Parampara. That will vary in each case. The general principle is to respect parents. If they oppose our Krishna consciousness, we're going to have to temper that respect or mix it with some disobedience, as in the case of Prahlad with Hiranyakashipu. All right, Hare Krishna.